Out here 291 Thompson Road at the Purple Heart Dragon Memorial, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 3255. Just wanted to share in response towards the senator dying, Congress dying of being ordered to lower the flag half-staff in response to being respectful to that in which what has occurred. You know, I was thinking a while ago because all throughout my life I've been basically independent, being rejected being rejected by the corporate church world here in this area pertaining to the Windmill Ministries missions. But I was thinking a while ago, in response towards everything that has occurred, that today it just seems like everything wants to be politicized. And it's really remarkably sad that people can no longer function and act like decent, moral citizens here in America, pretending they're doing the right thing, in response towards now everything has to be politicized. And whenever it comes to like all the gun violence that we've seen, it should be it should be a given, without no debate, that we are no longer living in the same era that what it was. I hear a woodpecker and a cuckoo bird. I ain't heard no doves yet this morning. That's kind of strange. I guess because it's a little bit foggy out here, still damp. But it's really sad that our Constitution was written in 1776 or somewhere around 1776. Back whenever they had just basically, and I know this is going to be contrary. I know this is going to create a lot of raised eyebrows. But whenever you look logically at the American laws, whenever the Constitution was originally designed, we didn't have other than single-shot powder guns, black powder guns. Today, they got freaking machine guns that'll cut that freaking tree right there in half, where them bicycles are leaning across. They got machine guns that'll literally cut that freaking truck right there, just basically chew it all to pieces. Whenever you take 50 cal that's coming out about 3,500 rounds per minute, yeah, it don't take long to work on something like that, just to basically shred it into pieces. So whenever it comes to, I ain't going to use the word change, but alter or kind of like what I done out here with the memorial, the Dragon Memorial, as far as refurbishing it, I feel like that our gun law needs to be refurbished. It needs to be tweaked, especially in the 21st century, with people having the right to handle machine guns and basically don't have to have no type of training, no type of acceptance to be able to prove that you're a worthy, fitting citizen, regardless whether you're an outlaw citizen or just a regular citizen, in being able to handle this type of artillery. I bumped in last night because I had to pick up a couple posts from a project going on out here towards building my wheelchair ramp, not knowing the extensive damages that I'm going to have to receive after going through a ankle fusure, ankle injection fusure. At my age, with me being a diabetic, there's always a possibility that I could die. There's always a possibility that I could lose a foot or lose a leg. So there's a lot of a lot of unforeseeables that I have to be prepared for, though hoping for the best, always expecting the worst. That way you don't get caught blindsided. But last night I was over at Roll King picking up a couple of posts, and I bumped into somebody that I know very well. He was the guy that basically manufactured or brought into this area pertaining to the helicopter services to be able to do rescue on people that's got proper insurance to be able to take them either to Jackson or to Memphis or possibly even to, I guess, Nashville, Vanderbilt Hospital up there. I know him very, very well. Been to his house, been in his house. Has a beautiful, beautiful wife, has a beautiful daughter, has a nice little setup just right down the road here, give or take about 3 miles from where I live. And he made mention, after I mentioned to him about me going to have an operation, he said, "Where are you going to have your operation at?" I said, "Clarksville." He goes, "Oh, you're going to have it up there at the VA hospital?" I said, "No, I'm going to have it up there at Civilian Hospital. Mr. Morris, Morisses or something, Moritz. I call it Moritz. They call it Mr. Morse. I ain't never seen Morse or more with 2 S's, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not an English major. But I thought to myself, as he was leaving, that he would make such a remark like that he must think or be under the interpretation that I am a veteran. I just wanted to clarify to my citizens that I have never, per se, on paper, been a veteran. I am still a United States normal American citizen. My father was a World War II draftee out of the 2nd Infantry out of Washington State, being with the Chiefs. He lost a whole platoon or branch because of the Battle of the Bulge. Whenever he come back from that ruckus that was going on after the war had ended, he had social, mental, physical scars that obviously people didn't recognize at the time. That was basically a World War II drill sergeant and giving commands towards people in combat. Even though I've been raised up as a brat, they call it a military brat. In other words, we was never asked to do basically anything. We was ordered to do it, and if we didn't do it, we suffered the consequences towards not doing it. I am still only an advocate for the military. I want everybody to know that before we get any further into this. And I do understand, by me doing what I'm doing right now out in the eyes of the public, even though this is considered a secondary road, a country road, basically right at the edge of Beach Ridge Bottom, where the Great Titan, pertaining to the tree, being one of the biggest cypress on this side of the Mississippi, basically was in my backyard here. This is on my grandmother's property here. Even though what I'm doing out in the public, in putting up a dragon memorial for not just our military, not just our first responders, but also for 9/11, and also for that in which what took place, bringing both incidences together with the Oklahoma bombing incident with Timothy McVeigh in 1995, as well as the incident that happened in Mount Carmel in 1993 pertaining to the Branch Davidians. Bringing all of this together under one roof, I realize in the eyes of the public, there's really no way for me not to get out of the eye of politicalization. I'm not a diplomat. I haven't never been sworn in the American laws towards being a diplomat. I have made vows with other independent people towards protecting our Constitution and protecting the American people, towards basically being an anti-terrorist activist of people that want to bring harm and hurt to our great nation and to our people. But as far as me actually belonging to the United States military, as of right now, unless something official happens out here on these grounds, I am still considered just a citizen. I understand that by me being this flamboyant, coming out into the eyes of the public, pertaining to biblical Bible prophecies, that it could be looked upon by some towards it being very, very political. And if that be the case, then that's fine too. But I just want to recognize to those that know me and know anything about my life that I am not a political person. That's the reason why I really stand to be neutral on politics. And most military officials do, because it's not about what party that we represent, but it's the family that we represent. We represent the whole family. And whenever I put up a memorial out there in honor of James Robert Jackson, it's not just for James Robert Jackson, but it's for all military personnel. It's for all first responders. It's for all of those who have been willing to lay down their lives and basically pay the ultimate sacrifice for. Getting back on why I'm even videoing this particular video on this particular day is in response towards what they're fixing to show on TV, towards all the catastrophes that have outlandishly been bombarding not just the American people, but the world in general. But I wanted to come out here and verify this a little bit before I go out there, go back inside the house to do that. To verify, yes, I am an American citizen. I am a civilian as of today. Until something tremendously, horrendously occurs in my life here, not only of this property, but that in which what I have engaged my life in regards towards biblical Bible prophecies, as far as I'm concerned, I will always remain nothing more, nothing less than a sovereign citizen of the United States of America. A civilian. I realize that some people, as a matter of fact, I've actually been called a diplomat. I realize that some people may see the position that I'm in towards possibly being some sort of a United States diplomat. I'm not, per se, authoritarianly wise, a diplomat. I represent the righteousness and the glory of the Lord Jesus Christ and the kingdom of God through the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ. My job as a messenger is to put out the message of hope, is to put out the message of love, is to put out the message of grace, is to put out the message of mercy, that Jesus Christ himself said that he would be with us even until the ends of the world. In spirit form. Whenever it talks about that nothing will hurt you, in spirit form, once you have made that dedication, that obligation to being a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have sorrows. That doesn't mean you're not going to go through sicknesses. That doesn't mean you're not going to have heartaches. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges in your life. That means nothing will harm you or hurt you, spiritually speaking. In other words, once you've made that obligation, it's kind of like obligating yourself with the CIA, in which that's a completely different matter that I don't even want to talk about right now, because I don't feel like that should be talked about. But whenever it comes to being obligated to Christ, the same as Christ is obligated to us, Once you become a member, you are considered from then on a lifelong, indefinite member of the kingdom of God. That's not only in this world, but also in the world to come, especially if you are a true born-again member. That's the reason why the Baptists, per se, I think they're the ones that stick to this in their philosophy, that no person can pluck you from the Father's hand. And they can't. They may can beat you. They may can scorn you. They may can make fun of you. They may can ridicule you. They may can demonize you or dehumanize you. They can even take your life, your physical life. But as far as your spiritual life, no one, nothing, or no one is in control of that. And that's the reason why Jesus said that no man can pluck you from the Father's hand. They can try. They can try to persuade you. They can try to trick you. They can try to influence you in negative ways. They can bring up all kinds of lies and accusations. They can take some of our boo-boos and some of our mistakes and use it against us if they like. But the bottom line is this: they're not our judge. Our judge is the same judge that everybody's going to have the judge over, pertaining to the Creator, the great I Am. And it will be Him and Him alone that makes that decision towards whether or not we are still bonded to that body of believers pertaining to being in the Lord Jesus Christ. I just wanted to verify that. And in ways, I guess I should be flattered, and I guess I am, of people thinking that I am associated with the military because I am such of a strong advocate for the military. But this, what I'm doing out here, goes beyond just military. This, what I'm doing out here, goes to the extent of being morally correct. Being that good Samaritan that went out of my way to go all the way to stay on the grounds of the Davidians for 3 days and 3 nights, do an extensive research, an investigation, and then going to Oklahoma and basically doing the same. This goes beyond some sort of a branch coming from the United States military. This is a civil commitment that I have made towards doing the proper and right thing. Now, if the people in this particular area chooses not to do that, then there's nothing that I can do to change that. If our government chooses not to do the right thing pertaining to what that I have done, or the people in Kentucky or Tennessee or Oklahoma or wherever chooses not to do the right thing, then there's nothing that I can do about that. Once more, everything that I have done has been on a volunteer level. Whenever I was growing up as a child, being less than 10 miles away the way the crow flies from where Davy Crockett lived before he went down to Alamo and fought for our liberties and freedom and basically died, paid the ultimate sacrifice for that. These people have been a great inspiration in my life that I not only heard about, read about, there's been movies about. People like Buford Pulser, as badly as people may think that he was pertaining to some of his ethics that he was using at the time, these people I admired, I looked up to. There's been other people, even people here in Weakley County and Obion County in Northwest Tennessee, that I've looked up to, politically speaking, not morally speaking, not spiritually speaking, but politically speaking, I've looked up to. But as of right now, I just wanted to verify that I am not a veteran. Probably should have been, growing up under the hand of a raw drill sergeant of World War II. Probably should have had. Matter of fact, my brother, before he died, within a month before he died, reflected of our agony being so distressful on this particular property and up the road here where we was growing up at. He said, Juby, as far as I'm concerned, we are Holocaust survivors. We have went through so much here in Northwest Tennessee that we should actually be considered Holocaust survivors. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, David, come on." He said, "No." He said, "Especially what you've been through." He said, "We have went through it, man." And it really didn't dawn on me and how real that his words was until after he passed. And then after he passed, his words was very, very clear in what that he was saying and how that he was saying it towards the suffering. And if you look at the Native Americans pertaining to our Indian culture, yeah, we was Holocaust survivors. Let's get back over here now to where this is fixing to come on and get a better outlook in what I'm talking about here.
In Hawaii, authorities will begin allowing the first residents to return to their properties in Lahaina. Nearly 7 weeks after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century devastated the area, the tragedy claimed the lives of at least 97 people and decimated over 2,000 structures. For many, this will be their first glimpse of the area since the fire tore through the historic town. Some residents say they are concerned about climate change as they face the daunting task of rebuilding.
Everyone needs to figure out what can we do so this never happens again, because not just fire, but other parts of climate change is happening to us here.
Joining us now, Presidential Distinguished Professor and Director of the Center for Science, Sustainability, and the Media at the University of Pennsylvania, Michael Mann. His new book is entitled Our Fragile Moment: How Lessons from Earth's Past Can Help Us Survive the Climate Crisis. And it's great to have you on the show and to talk about your book, but I guess the first question is the question that resident had. I mean, how do you rebuild in Lahaina and protect from climate change?
Well, especially when you consider we had the hottest summer ever, the hottest August ever, the hottest July ever,
Exactly.
the hottest June ever. Regardless of where the damage is, we know that it's coming. It's increasing every year. The data shows that.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's good to be with you. And you're absolutely right. We've just been through this unprecedented summer of dangerous, damaging, deadly extreme weather events. The disaster in Maui, here in New York, down in Philadelphia where I live, we had the worst air quality in the world for several days because of the Canadian wildfires, driven, of course, by an epic drought. And so we are reaping what we've sown. We are seeing the damaging impacts of climate change today. And sort of the message of our fragile moment is that it's not too late, because it might seem too late, right? With everything we're feeling and witnessing and experiencing, it might seem like we're past the point of no return. But when we look to the past, when we look at what has happened on this planet for billions of years, it turns out that it teaches us lots of lessons. And one of those lessons is there is resilience of our environment and of our climate to a point. And we are still within that sort of regime of resilience, but we will soon leave it if we fail to ramp down carbon emissions dramatically over the next decade.
So, Dr. Mann, you outlined the summer, and it was an awful summer on this side of the Atlantic. It was bad in Europe as well. And yet we've come out of this moment where all the indications are that the world is heating up faster and faster. The ice flows are diminishing. And yet what do we see? Particularly in Europe, we see politicians rowing back commitments to climate change. The British Prime Minister just did so last week. The European Union also slowing down some of their commitments to getting towards net zero. How do politicians bring people along with them so that they don't feel that green policies are an electoral liability?
Yeah, I think it's all about the messaging. What we haven't done a good job of collectively, scientists and science communicators and news folks, is really driving home the tremendous damage and cost that we are paying right now for the damaging impacts of these extreme weather events. And those costs in tens of billions of dollars far outweigh any cost of taking action. In fact, taking action isn't even a cost, it's an investment in a clean, renewable energy economy. And so I think it's about the messaging. And the point of my book is, look, if you feel, despair, if you feel like we are doomed, the science doesn't tell us that. The obstacles aren't physical and they're not technological. We have the solutions to this problem.
I want to stop him right there. The science may not verify doom, but the Bible does. The Bible does. Because Christ was very intimate in how he expressed himself to his disciples and said that I have things that I want to reveal to you, but I cannot because you are not yet capable of obtaining this knowledge. And we see where whenever Jesus died, he was resurrected. He went back up to the Father, sitting on the right hand of God, making intercession prayer for us. That a few years later was whenever John the Revelator on the island of Patmos was given a full vision, a prophecy of things that not only was, not only is, but in things that is to come. Now, it hasn't been but until the past, 40 years that the Catholic administration, the Catholic Church, has steered clear up until about 40 years ago towards even acknowledging that the book of Revelations was even one of the Gospels. Why they was so skittish on not accepting Revelations towards it being just as authentic as John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Bible, I don't know. But it wasn't until about 40 years ago whenever they started accepting the teachings of Revelations towards it actually being the gospel. I don't know if a lot of people knows that. Probably my son that is predominantly Catholic. I don't even know if he knows that. But I know that whenever I went down to Dallas, Texas in 1981, 82, somewhere around there, I think it was in 82, I also went out west, stayed several months with my cousin out at Thousand Oaks, California, just outside of LA, where the Reagan Library is. But I know that at that time, according to my cousin Jerry and his wife Leslie, that was predominantly Catholic. At that time, they had 3 small girls that's now grown. They've had families of their own. That at that time, Revelations was not considered an authentic book in the early 80s. Now, my life was spared in 1983. And I put the puzzle together, or the pieces together, pertaining to my life being spared, in conjunction to what I was told long about 10 years prior to that, of this individual that had these remarkable powers, but was evil, but was not the actual Antichrist, but a follower of the Antichrist. I had to put all those pieces together in my life to be able to put me where I am today. And it's been a heck of a journey. It's been, that movie, The Longest Ride. I think I have taken the longest ride pertaining to all the persecution and all the misinformation and all the lies and deceit that was told upon to my life. People that wanted to put me in the category of basically being a monster. Well, that was the same thing that they'd done to other prophets of God throughout history. They either wanted to put them in the category of being a monster, or they put them in the category of being just crazy, just somebody that was out of their minds. And that validates their actions. That soothes their consciousness of saying, well, they're getting what they deserve. It was justifiable in hanging this individual from a cross and killing him, even though he had never done anything to validate breaking their laws, much less breaking that type of a law to receive that type of punishment. If we as a society, regardless whether it's an American society or a worldly society, if we as a society cannot recognize the differences between right and wrong, between righteousness and unrighteousness, then we as a society are doomed. Now, let's go back to what he said on a political, scientific level. If we was to all move in conjunction at the same time in stopping burning so much fossil fuel and stopping taking so much oil, crude oil, out of the ground, we could possibly slow it down. I personally believe that the damage has been done to the degree that the Bible's going to fulfill itself in the regards towards, as we shall see the days approaching, indicating that we will be able to tangibly see these things, that no flesh shall be saved, but for the elect's sake whom God has chosen, those days would be shortened. Those prophecies are written in the Bible just like writing them in stone. You're not going to reverse them. You can slow them down, but you're not going to stop them. So, in a way, I kind of agree with what this guy's saying, but in another way, to be quite honest with you, I think we've went over the Rubicon. I think our opportunity of being able to reverse this and stop it from happening was about 20-something years ago, whenever people like Al Gore was standing up on the plutonium and saying the truth. But the people at that time didn't want to accept the truth. Just like if Jesus would have exposed the end time events to his disciples while he was living, walking and talking among them, they wouldn't have accepted the truth pertaining to the seals, the 7 seals, pertaining to the 7 trumpets, pertaining to the manifestation of what was going to occur in the final last days. Not just the last days, but the final last days. And that's the reason why Jesus said that you wouldn't receive it. You wouldn't accept it. And that's the reason why God appointed a certain man, John the Revelator, on the island of Patmos, to be caught up into this vision, into this there was another word I was looking for. I can't think of it right now. Inspiration. And God said, what thou seest and hearest, writest into a book. And God basically had to go through a search program to find somebody that had the faith in him and to find somebody that had the ability to be able to write at that time. I'm pretty sure that the writings was not English. They was probably Aramaic or Hebrew or something. And since then, those interpretations have been translated and transliterated from one generation to another generation to give us what we got today. So in one way, I understand what this guy's saying, and I support it 100% because I wish that it could stop. I really do. The environment that we have created for ourselves, not only on the planet, but up in the atmosphere, I wish that it could stop. But whenever it says the things that it says in the Bible pertaining to Satan will come down in great wrath because it or he knoweth his time is short, it means just exactly that. And it's not just rapists. It's not just murderers. It's not just people that want to kick out a window in Las Vegas and basically shoot about 1,000 people and kill about, I think it was 60-something of them or whatever, however many it was that died during that shooting. It's not just that, but it's also the forces of nature that we are dealing with today, that we have tampered with, that we should have paid more attention to, probably going way before Al Gore ever stood onto the podium and started talking about these things. Because there were certain people in the science industry that brought these things to the American politicians' attention, going all the way back into the Carter and Nixon era. And it was excused. Whenever Mr. Pence, Vice President Pence, talks about that there has been mistakes made, These are part of those mistakes. Is that those things was not paid close enough attention towards putting all the dots together. Because if it was, I truly believe we would not be going through the things that we're going through right now, regardless whether it be the extreme weather events or all the other horrors that we're seeing unfolding, not just here in America, but throughout the world.
The problem, the obstacles at this point are entirely political, and political obstacles can be overcome. We've got an upcoming, election where voters will have an opportunity to choose the path we take. Do we want to continue down this road of climate denialism and climate inaction and an ever mortgaged planet, or do we want to invest in a better planet for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren? It's still up to us.
Coming up, best-selling authors James Patterson.
We have reached a point, regardless whether the financial communities or committees want to agree with it or not, damned if we do and damned if we don't. Now, the conglomerates, regardless whether it's the American conglomerates or the Russian conglomerates or the China conglomerates or the Indian conglomerates or the African conglomerates, are going to have to pull together towards saying which is the lesser of the two evils. Should we invest in solar, wind, and alternative energy forms, or are we going to continue to keep being battered again and again and again with all this miserable bad luck that has befallen upon to the planet, that now is so obvious that even a blind man could see it? I mean, you would literally, I think, have to be incompetent of comprehending most anything if you cannot comprehend that we are living in the final last days, because of all the signs and all the things that we're seeing unfolding just within the past 30 plus years. And actually, if you want to get technical about it, actually since 1983. The Colorado River, Lake Mead, or the Hoover Dam, has not been at its fullest capacity since 1983. And that's basically whenever things started rapidly changing, that other people that had access to the internet and had access to different knowledge was already seen, but did not put out a loud enough, good enough warning. So in a way, what this guy is talking about pertaining to imaging or putting out the messages properly is hitting a nail on the head. And it's not so much that it wasn't being put out there, it's how it was being put out there. And whenever you take something and use it or say it on a kosher level, odds are it's probably going to be accepted as a kosher level, mediocre level. But now whenever you see the things unfolding, not just with the weather, but also with mankind. I mean, less than, I guess, 2 years ago, we hadn't seen snatch and grab. Whenever 40, 50, maybe 100 people would all get together, because they can now pull together and they can use talk language that most people can't understand. They can use symbols and signals to be able to know what they're talking about, to be able to plan these events out on the internet. And hey, let's all meet down here at so-and-so street at 2 o'clock Tuesday morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And they're smart enough to put in conjunction that they may actually do this in the time frame whenever the shift is basically changing on a police force. They look at the weaknesses, and they could actually plot some sort of something even bigger than that, causing a diversion, maybe catch a building on fire, or maybe cause another disturbance on the other end of town or the other end of the city. And the next thing you know, while everybody's going in one direction, they're going in the other direction towards hitting the store and going in and hitting Gucci's or Macy's or whoever, and going in there and getting some of the most top-notch quality stuff that cost the rich people so much money, because they're basically living in a completely different world than what the poor people and the working people are working in. Whenever it gets to the point that the common person can't go to the common grocery store or the common department store and walk in there without having to have some sort of special clearances just to be able to get toothpaste, because the toothpaste is locked up in behind a plexiglass, I guess the thing to get into the business of right now, it would be plexiglass. The plexiglass business would probably be a business to get into. I know the air conditioning business pertaining to designing and manufacturing and selling AC air conditioning parts and products would probably be the thing to get into, because the earth is heating up on a day-to-day level. That's the reason why we're seeing the people down in South America and Mexico moving up this way, is because they don't have air conditioning. For the most part, a lot of those people don't even have electricity. They're still living in primitive third world conditions. And whenever the world is steadily warming up every day, it's becoming intolerable for these people to live in those conditions. They claim there's places in South Africa right now, down by the Horn of Africa, that the conditions has become so hot that even the tigers and the wildlife is struggling towards being able to survive in some of those conditions. It's unbelievable in what we're going to have to face, just as the Bible has predicted that we're going to have to face off on, because it says whenever the great tribulation period does hit, whenever God comes and resurrects his people from the planet and comes in flaming fire, seeking vengeance upon them who know not him and upon them who know not the gospel, it says that during this time, during that 7-year massive tribulation period, that the world will become so horrible that mankind will want to die and death will flee from them. And that sounds unimaginable for the world to be flipped upside down because of the doings of our own selves. But it was already predicted thousands of years ago where we are, and especially where we're heading to, if we do not immediately put the brakes on what's happening. And it's going to have to come full circle on not only the spiritual side of it, but the political side of it, much less the scientific side of it, in being more honest with humanity and telling humanity the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth about what is going on. As I have said before, and I'll say again, scientists for the past 40, 50 years, ever since they've become more and more concerned about the climate changes upon the planet, they have been pointing their direction towards everything that is occurring upon the planet, basically coming from the atmosphere above our heads. Part of that is correct, but not all of that is correct, because if the sun was causing the planet to heat up the way that they're claiming the planet is heating up, it would be uninhabitable. We wouldn't be able to go out into the sun without getting 2nd, 3rd, 4th degree burns. I know that according to science, because of the ozone layer breaking down, that it is causing a problem with certain ecosystems, frogs being born with 2 heads, tadpoles not maturing right, snakes being more freakish. The planet heating up is also causing more bacteria pertaining to germ warfare, etc., etc. And as we continue to keep seeing the glaciers melting, we're going to see more of that. That's just going to bring that much more misery to mankind. And I guess the concept in behind all this, coming from the spiritual Luciferian Lucifer, was to make humanity's life so miserable that basically the best thing between choosing between the lesser of the two evils was to go ahead and press all the big buttons at the same time and end humanity and end the world the way towards it being a quick fix or a mercy killing to the degree of taking us out that way. I don't think God's going to allow for a nuclear holocaust to happen. I'm not saying that a nuclear bomb is not in the cards towards it actually occurring, regardless whether it's coming from Russia or whoever, or maybe a terrorist group over in the Middle East somewhere. I'm not saying that a nuclear bomb isn't going to be activated rather than an atom bomb before now and the very end of time. But what I am saying is that God is in control. And if God wants the world to be destroyed by a nuclear activity, then it wouldn't actually be God that's destroying the world now, would it? It would be God allowing for mankind to destroy the world, or for mankind to destroy himself. Mankind is destroying himself every day. We're seeing that because of all the pressures. We're seeing that because of all the cancers, all the diseases, all the problems with the gun violence, all the drug abuse, all the other turmoils that's going on. We see that on a day-to-day level that we have become callous to in certain forms, and now it's not near as astonishing to us as what it was, let's say, whenever somebody first kicked out a window out of the Vegas Las Vegas casino and started firing onto the audience. These things are not so astonishing to us. So because they're not so astonishing to us, now we're becoming callous to it. But that's exactly what the devil wants, kind of like the frog in the water theory, warming the water up slowly to the point that you don't realize that you're doomed until after it's too late. I tend to wonder that that was the whole motive, the concept in behind the spiritual, demonic, Luciferian Lucifer. That if he could drive humanity off to the point that picking between the lesser of the two evils was to basically end humanity by pressing the nuclear bombs all at the same time, then he could basically shake his fist in the face of God and say, you see there, look what I have done. I don't think God's going to allow that to happen. Not just on a humanitarian level, but on a spiritual level pertaining to Lucifer basically ending the world. Lucifer is having a big play in taking different chunks out of the world that has put us where we are today, towards seeing all the horrors that's basically unfolding. But Lucifer has still not yet accomplished that, because certain people such as myself are on to Lucifer, and we're explaining very, very thoroughly to the general public of where we are, where we shouldn't be, and where we could possibly be going if people does not pay closer attention to everything that's going on. I want to thank you for your time. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our American men and women in uniform, pertaining to our first responders and those that we have set aside and given permission or the authority to help protect us. I want to say God bless them, and good luck to all of us, and heaven help us all in these last remaining days that we're on the planet, and hopefully we can turn all these things around in the degree of a great awakening. God bless, and shalom.